Can you still use a 6-year-old iPad in 2025? This is the iPad 7th generation. Released back in 2019, it was Apple's budget-friendly tablet that sold for just $329 and gave us a bit of a bigger screen, plus Apple Pencil support. But after all this time, is it still worth using or even buying today? Now, because I don't want to say iPad 7th generation every time, I'm just going to call it the iPad 7, not to be confused with the iPad 7 mini, which Apple released last year. The iPad 7 came out on September 25th, 2019 in two storage sizes, 32 gigs and 128 gigs. It was also the first iPad to feature a 10.2-inch display, bumping up from the classic 9.7 inches we'd had for nearly a decade. The iPad 7 came in three different colors: silver, space gray, and gold. And the one I'm showing here is the silver model. I've got it in a Time City case. They're not a sponsor at all, but I just really like the case. It's super solid, durable, has a built-in hand grip, and even a slot for the Apple Pencil. At launch, it started at $329, but today you can find them for around $85 to $140 online, depending on storage and condition. Inside, it's running Apple's A10 Fusion chip, the same one found in the iPhone 7. It's definitely not the fastest thing on the block, but for everyday tasks like YouTube, internet browsing, or note-taking, it's surprisingly still usable. The A10 is efficient, but at this point, there's no hiding it. It's old, and iOS 18.7 isn't really doing it any favors. It eats up system resources like crazy. The A12 Bionic in the iPad 8th generation is night and day difference. So while this iPad still works, it's starting to show signs of age. Now, by far, the biggest issue with this iPad is storage. Even if you get the 32 gig model, you're only working with around 12 gigs of free space after setup. The operating system alone takes up over 10 gigs and system data eats up another 8. So once you install a few big apps or games, you're basically done. If you plan to use this iPad regularly, please get the 128 gig version. Trust me, you're gonna need it unless you only want like 8 apps. Now, credit where credit is due, the 7,900 milliamp battery has held up surprisingly well. Apple rated it for about 10 hours, and in my experience, after 3 years of use, it still gets around 6 to 7 hours under heavy use. If you're buying used, be sure to check the battery health. It's a bit of a pain to do, but it's important. Anything under below 80% capacity means you'll be charging it a lot, and you might end up having to replace the battery or the tablet sooner than you expected. It's still usable, but you can find newer models for the same or even less money. That said, if you do stumble upon one for $50 or less, it's not a bad pickup for casual use or retro gaming. It's an old iPad that refuses to die, and honestly, that's kind of what makes it impressive. If you plan to use this for school or meetings, I suppose it's passable, but just don't expect it to be anywhere near iPhone level quality. The iPad 7 supports the first generation Apple Pencil, but not the Pencil 2. Sadly, I had to learn that the hard way. It still uses the Lightning connector, so be sure to keep that in mind if you've gone all in on USB-C. Not to mention, there's also a Wi-Fi only model and a cellular version. So if you travel a lot, the LTE model might still come in handy, although I'm sure all the businessmen out there are rocking the 2025 iPad Pro because they casually have $2,600 to drop on it, and sadly, I'm broke. For me, I actually love using this iPad for retro gaming. Emulators run beautifully, and classic games barely take up any storage in the first place. And it's also great for watching videos, reading, and some basic note-taking, but that's about where it ends. If you're thinking about using it for creative work, school projects, or anything heavy, go for the iPad 8th generation or newer. They're faster and often cheaper secondhand. Alright guys, that's going to be it for today's video. If you enjoyed it, be sure to give it a thumbs up and subscribe for more retro tech content.